All right, kids, this is the last video on our exponent rules. So just to, again, sum up, on the right-hand side, anything that has 0 power is 1. Anything to a negative exponent moves. When you have like bases and you are multiplying, keep the base, add the exponents. This is power to a power, keep the base, and multiply the exponents. Okay. Now the last thing we're going to do, I'm not going to write it down as a rule. I'm just going to kind of show you some examples. Okay. So let's say we have something like this. There's a few different things we want to do. Let's say we have a to the 6th. Well, we've already done stuff like this, right? And a to the 3rd. Well, we know on the top that means a times a times a times a times a times a. And on the bottom, we have a 3 times, so we end up with 3 in the top, so that would be a to the 3rd. Now, I hope you guys realize we can bypass this middle step, right? What you have to do is just ask yourself, take a look at this. Where do you have more a's? On the top by 3. Boom. There it is. So let's say I had something like this. A squared over a to the 5th. Again, we can bypass this step. Where do I have more a's? Well, here I have more on the bottom. By how many? By 3. So I have a to the 3rd on the bottom. You could do this canceling, but this is what you would end up with. You'd end up with extra 3 a's on the bottom. Okay, so this is you only want to do this when you end up with the same variable, positive exponents. You just ask yourself, where do you have more? Okay, if you have a situation like this, make the exponents positive first. You see, so that -2, that tells that to go down. This -6 tells that to go up. Where do you have more? Up on the top by 4. You see what I'm saying? Make them positive first. Okay? Now, you could have something like this, a to the -3 over a to the 8th. So the only one that's moving is the one on the top. So that goes down. So this goes down and becomes positive and joins the 8, turning that into an 11 because you would add it. Because a to the 8th times a to the 3rd, you would add and become a to the 11th. Okay? So that's really the gist of what we're doing with these types of problems. Okay, if you have the same variable, and again, in different positions, top and bottom, make it positive first, and then ask yourself where you have more. Now, clearly, same thing with numbers. If I had 5 to the, well, we've done this in the past, 6th over 5 to the 8th, where do you have more? On the bottom by 2, which would be 1 over 25. Okay, so that's the way to go on those. And of course, I've just been doing single variable, but I mean, the same thing would apply if you had 2 variables in the same problem. So let's say you had, c to the -1, d to the 3rd, over c to the 5th, d to the -4. Well, that d is positive, so that stays put. This -4 goes up and joins the 3, turning that into 7. This -1 goes down and joins the 5 and turns it into 6. There you go. Okay. Now, some problems I want to do here you know, we've already touched on this too. Remember, if you saw something like this, a fraction raised to a power, both the numerator and the denominator get that power, okay? They both get the power. And here, let's do one with like 3 over x to the third raised to the fourth. Okay, well, this is a regular number on the top. So 3 to the fourth power is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's going to be 81. Here, you do the power to a power rules. So that would become x to the 12th. Okay. Now, sometimes we'll have something like this. Well, let's do this first. Okay. So both of these things are getting the -3. So that means this negative, that means the 2 goes down and the 3 goes up. So let's flip it. After the flip is made, the power is still there, but it becomes positive. And then 3 to the third, 2 to the third, and you get 27 over 8. Okay? Hoping this is making sense. Whoops. Again. So let's take care of this outer power first. It's negative, so that tells things to flip. So that means the 4x goes down, the c goes up, still negative. But that becomes positive. So now you apply that to both. Remember, this is an invisible -1. -1 squared is +1. The c gets squared, the 4 gets squared, the x gets squared. There you go. Okay, it's not that bad. All right, not that bad. Let's see what else we want to do here. Maybe we'll do one more. Well, you can handle this. And then we'll do one with scientific notation. So again, negative power tells things to flip. And then the power becomes positive. -2 to the fourth power is the negative is in parentheses. That's going to be positive 16. All set. And I just want to do, let's just do 80 times 10 to the 20th over 4 times 10 to the, I'm just making this up, 10th. So, this is a fraction bar. So these numbers here you divide. 80 divided by 4 would be 20. Again, where do you have more tens? On the top, okay, by 10. And then this would be what? Invisible decimal goes 10 times to the right. We moved it the wrong way. Let's do one more. Okay. Let's do 16 divided by 4 is 4. This -10 is telling this 10 to go down, and it'll join it in the bottom. Okay, so it's in the bottom. So you'd essentially have 10 to the 30th on the bottom. But you see, to make a 10 to the 30th on the bottom, you'd have to have a 10 to the -30th on the top, because that -30 tells this 10 to go down. See, when you write your final answer in scientific notation, it's always in the numerator. So this negative 10 tells us to go down, so you have 10 to the 30th in the bottom. You have to ask, well, how do I make 10 to the 30th in the bottom? I'd have to have a negative 30 in the top.